Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Got a Case of Wanderlust podcast. There's a little bit of noise around me because I'm in the airport. Surprise, surprise. But I had the privilege of having a really special conversation with a really awesome person whom I met in Hawaii back in May. He was the first person that really struck me as a true traveler. He seemed very knowledgeable about the islands when I first came. He was like, I thought he worked like as a tour guide or something because he just knew everything. And turns out he was only there a few days before me. But I think it just shows the depth of his travel experience and his travel knowledge that he's gotten over the years on the road. So with that, let's get to the conversation. Hello, guys. I'm here with another special guest. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi. Thank you. Special. What a great way to start. My name is Adam. I am American from New York City originally. I live somewhat in California, somewhat nomad, and yeah. I mean, I love travel. I'm super honored that you asked me to join. I'm not a big podcast guy, but I'm really excited to be a part of this.
Well, I'm honored that you wanted to be part of this show. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to be honest. So, we met in Hawaii, and Hawaii was my first trip where I actually felt like I got a authentic hostel experience, like talking from real travelers who are actually, living in different places, living out their dreams, and it's not just for one vacation. And I felt like you were the first person I met who actually had that vibe, like a traveler mindset, who was I've never met anyone who was actually like living somewhere for more than, I don't know, a few weeks at a time. And over the past 6 years, you said, right? Um, Over the past 6 years, you've been traveling just all over and kind of pursuing your passions, what makes you happy. So, yeah, I will say that you're the first official person I met that had that kind of experience, and so that's why I wanted to talk with you because it seems like you have a lot of insight to share.
Yeah. Yeah, not quite 6 years, but for sure it feels like 6 years. I love it, and it's not for everybody, for sure. Kind of like nomad life. But yeah, I remember when we met in Hawaii, and yeah, we just that was such a great group. And there was just such an amazing trip. I was super happy to meet and watching kind of what you've done over the past almost a year has been amazing. It's crazy to think that that was kind of your start. You've definitely run with it.
Yeah, I know it really has like it's felt like a year, but it also has felt like not even a
Yeah.
year, but it's also felt like like a lifetime within a year. Does that make sense?
No, for sure.
Like,
I know exactly what you mean. It's
yeah.
like time. We had this joke. I was just in Colombia and I met a great group kind of later in the trip. I met great people the whole time, but I met this great group that I really enjoyed. For a few days, we got to stay at the same hostel, and then I went traveling actually to a national park with a couple of the people as well. And we had this joke: time is a construct. Um, it really you really just you both lose track of time, but also it's kind of magnified because every time you're somewhere when you're traveling, you know that it has to end. You know that your trip has to end. Your time with the people you're with has to end. So it's like each one of those experiences, whether it's a few days, a few weeks, or a few hours, a few months, whatever it is, um, you kind of cherish that. It feels like a lifetime in itself. And then, you know, at the same time, you'll wake up one day and realize, holy shit, it's mid-February, and you've been doing whatever you've been doing for several months, or whatever. So yeah, it's crazy to think, even for us having met, that it's been whatever 9 months since then.
Yeah, and you've been quite a few places since then as well. Um, I first want to start off with the beginning though. Like, what first inspired you to hit the road, like, quit your job, live this nomad lifestyle?
Um, yeah, so for me, um, I've been traveling since I was a kid. My parents loved to hit the road. We obviously had like a home base, but we would go on like long road trips to visit family. I think as a kid, I probably went to 20, 25 different states. So my parents were, or my mom was military, so when they were younger, they traveled to all different countries. Just because my grandpa was. So I think it was just kind of within me from the beginning. We didn't do a whole lot of international travel, just some Caribbean islands as a kid, but for sure, it's something that as an American is not standard. Most people don't really kind of get the travel bug. I would say what really drove it for me was just running out of things to do in America, just kind of getting bored of it and, really wanting to get out and experience, other cultures. And so I studied international business, um, something I always wanted to do. When I was in high school, I went to Kenya and the Netherlands, Amsterdam. So, um, it was in me young. And then my first trip, I know on a previous podcast that you did with your friend Julia, she was talking about her first trip and being in a hostel and it being like the best trip of her life. And I kind of laughed because I feel the exact same way. I went to Costa Rica and it just blew my mind. Living in hostels, everything. And at that point, that was it. I just fell in love. Um, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And yeah, it's been a good run since then.
Yeah, and like hostels are again like where we met. And
Yeah.
I love how you're also a fan of hostels. I'm like a super fan at this point. So, have you ever had a hostel experience that was necessarily negative, or have you just had a great time in hostels all around?
Yeah, I mean, no, I wouldn't. I mean, yeah, I've had some negative hostile experiences. I mean, you try to do your research and try and sort out beforehand, whether you're going to like a place, whether people have had negative experiences there. But in the beginning, sometimes you sign up for a place and it just doesn't end up what you want to be. Actually, going back to that Costa Rica trip, I tried to do my research, find a place that was going to be, cool. But the first hostel I went to, basically the first hostel I'd ever stayed at on my first full solo trip, I get into the hostel and everybody's kind of younger and everybody's kind of living there. And it was just very inclusive or very exclusive, I should say. Um, I felt kind of left out of their thing that they had going on. We were kind of in the middle of nowhere, so there were some bars that were like a walk into town, and um, it was just kind of unfortunate. But the great thing about this culture and this life is that after the second day, when I figured out, what, this place isn't for me, I walked to this hostel down the road and then the trip took off from there. I met these two German girls as soon as I walked in. I just said hello, and we started talking. They told me they were going to the national park the next day, and asked me if I wanted to join. And we just had an amazing day, and I was just like mind blown at that point. And since then, it's basically just been those experiences over and over and over again. Yeah, so for sure, I've had negative experiences in hostels, but nothing too bad. Sometimes, it's too loud, or, God forbid, sometimes it happens. People steal shit in hostels. It's unfortunate, but you got to be as safe as you can. And, most of the time, that type of stuff hasn't happened. And then, yeah, there's sometimes that issue with, exclusivity or whatever. Like almost like high school. Like people fall into groups if they've been traveling for a long time. It happened a couple times in Colombia where people aren't as talkative or as open to meeting new people as you'd expect. But for the most part, it's just amazing. And if you don't like a place, you just get up and leave.
Yeah, I feel like the benefits definitely outweigh any negatives staying in hostels. And like as you said, you just
For
walk
sure,
with
for
people
sure.
and you could have lifelong friends. So it really like the social aspect or the fear of making friends is really not as big when you start putting yourself out there and actually, have your first hostel experience.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's funny after I talked to you yesterday, my not my nephew, my cousin, who's probably like a year or two older than you, or like actually right around the same age, had just messaged me. Actually, I haven't messaged him back, but he basically asked me all like these questions. He's like, "Hey, so I've saved up a bit of money. I've never traveled internationally by myself, but I've really, watching you and seeing other people, I really want to do it. Do you have any recommendations and stuff like that?" And I was almost going to be like, "Here, watch this podcast." like, um, yeah, it's amazing to see people get into it, and the more I can encourage, anybody I see or meet, to do it as much as possible because it's always an amazing experience. Even the bad experiences are good experiences. You know what I'm saying? So, how about you? Have you had any negative experiences so far?
I would say similar to your response. I'm a huge advocate for them, so clearly my negative experiences have not been over overweighed by the all the great things that have happened. But there's been a couple incidents with like guys just as a solo female traveler, but nothing where I felt unsafe, just uncomfortable.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I got you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm staying at my friend's place, basically cat sitting right now, and the cat has joined me
I love cats. I have a cat as well. I'm a cat person. But anyway, I'm so happy that your nephew is actually looking into solo traveling. That's so huge. I love seeing the travel community grow and seeing people have the courage to actually embark on these journeys because it really
here.
is life-changing.
Especially in America because we don't put an emphasis or anything on it. It's crazy to me the culture that we have here is so nationalist and so against doing the solo travel thing.
Yeah. What have you learned about other cultures, living extensively in other countries, and how has that shaped your views of America or just people, the world in general?
Um, yeah, I mean, I've it you learn. I mean, you learn a lot. I would say America versus other cultures. Um, I guess I'd start kind of where, like, what we were just saying. They're way more open to the rest of the world. Um, they have way more experience with the rest of the world. So, um, different things that as Americans, we think about each other, but, they have a much more worldly view in other countries, other cultures. And, everybody's different. So, it's kind of cool to get out and kind of meet somebody. And there's so many stereotypes out there that you know they exist for a reason. It's fun to kind of experience them to realize they're not too crazy. And as Americans, we get stereotyped a bunch, which some of it's true, some of it's a little bit exaggerated. Um, I can't think of anything, you know, any specific cultures. You meet obviously we meet a lot of Germans and Northern Europeans when we're traveling. Um, Dutch. It's nice to experience their differences. I can't think of anything very specific, but um, it's just awesome being out there and kind of learning it.
Yeah, totally. Well, I definitely want to dive into the countries you have lived in, have
Sure.
traveled in. But relating to that topic, America versus other countries, I feel like
Yeah,
this is
that's it.
a funny supplement to the conversation. So I recently found an article called 40 Ignorant and Disrespectful Things People Witnessed American Tourists Doing in Other Countries. And this is so freaking funny. I could send you the link, but some of them are just offensive,
Yeah,
not
please send me. I was actually just about to say I want to see that link. I want to see it. Be like, oh no, I've done that. I've done that. I've done that.
yes.
What do you got? What do you got?
High key embarrassing, but the fifth one is I once got told by an American tourist that I spoke English quite well. I'm English and this was in England.
Yeah.
Like, bro,
Um. That. Yeah. That one. It's sometimes I meet American tourist, like Americans in hostels or wherever, and it's cringy. I will say that. Like in Colombia, for sure, I met a couple of Americans that I was just like I'm not with him. I'm sorry, but it's really cool when I do meet Americans because I've traveled a bunch, and you really don't meet. You maybe meet one or two in each hostel, and sometimes you meet people and you're really refreshed. I've met a lot of even in Colombia. I met some college age travelers, but they were super woke, kind of a little too woke, but whatever. Um, but they kind of knew the deal and they were excited to meet people from different cultures and not point out the differences because it's unnecessary because everybody else is like act like you've been there before kind of is a good way to start and then you don't end up like number five there telling somebody that English well.
and
The only time I ever really comment on somebody's English, and I don't know if this is the right way, I don't know what the right way is, but for me personally, is when somebody apologizes for their English. 99% of the time, my response is it's great. Like the fact that you could have a conversation with me in this other language. I speak a bit of Spanish, but a very little bit and enough to get by. But it's amazing for these people who grow up learning English or learn it because it's kind of the language to know. Um, and that's really the only time I comment on it because far be it from me to have any judgment on somebody. I can barely speak a second language. It's amazing when the fact that these people go around and communicate with me. So yeah, hopefully I've never done anything close to that one.
I would completely agree with that. I say the exact same thing because I mean, we're so privileged as English speakers that English is a universal language. We could pretty much assume anywhere we go, there's going to be at least one person who could
Yeah,
understand English, and that is a privilege most people who don't speak English they don't have. Um,
yeah,
and like,
absolutely.
yeah, speaking from experience, like I've taken Spanish in school again, like for 6 years, and I am nowhere
Yeah,
near the fluency that people who have been speaking or studying English for half that time can speak.
yeah,
So
yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy to me.
yeah,
I actually feel kind of bad sometimes. I'm like, I just show up. I just hop on a plane to wherever, Germany or to a French Caribbean island or whatever, and I don't even look at Babel. I'm just like, yeah, I'll be fine. I know English, so that'll get me through. It's just kind of ridiculous when you think about it. We are privilege is the perfect word for it, but it's fun. It's not ever anything that should stop anyone
yeah.
from from going out and traveling. It's cool to learn the language and definitely, how to say hello, how to say thank you, when you're in a store or whatever. What's up?
Basic expressions or phrases.
Yeah, it's cool to learn that stuff, and it goes a long way with locals. So, I would encourage anyone who's new to travel to get into that type of stuff. You don't have to know everything. A lot of people like to learn the curse words or the fun stuff. You know what? It really adds to the experience.
Yeah, I definitely agree. As much as you can to immerse yourself in the local culture, adopting how the locals live, that really gives you the most authentic and meaningful experience. So, yeah,
Yeah,
100%. So,
absolutely.
what countries have you been to and that you've had these kind of experiences trying to, learn the local culture, customs, everything?
Yeah. Um, I mean, some of the coolest experiences I always love wherever I go to meet people from that country, because a lot of the times when you go and you're just doing the hostel thing, you kind of get stuck in that. And all the bars you go to are with hostile people. Nobody's actually from the country. Nobody's going to explain to you or be able to kind of teach you that other aspect of travel where you experience the culture and you experience, how people really live in that place. So every time I go out, I did when I was in Ireland, Scotland, I was fortunate to actually go on dates with people who were from the area, and it's really a much better experience, I think. Versus sightseeing or just going on bar calls with the hostel, to really go out and talk with somebody about their daily life. Sometimes they bring you to different things that you would never experience. And when I was in Dublin, I went to the one amusement park. It was a potato themed amusement park, the only amusement park in all of Ireland. Just because I met a girl who was going there with her friends, and she was nice enough to invite me.
Oh my
Um,
God. Was there a
and you meet all.
coaster?
No, I was actually really disappointed. They didn't have what I really wanted was bumper cars that were potatoes, and no, there was not enough. There actually wasn't enough potato themed stuff at the potato. It's called Tato Park, and I was really disappointed in the amount of potato themed stuff. They had a big guy that was like a mascot that was potato, and they gave you chips when you left, and it and the lunch hall had a lot of potato stuff, but no, there was no potato coaster. It was really, actually, they have some improving to do, but they have no competition. It's the only coaster. It's the only amusement park in Ireland. I guess that's just not something they do. Um, but yeah, uh, I went to Germany, and one of the cool things about that Hawaii trip and about a lot of the travel that I've done over the past 2 years, where I've been like really, really about it, like, just hated my job, so just traveled as much as possible. Um, I meet people traveling, and then it's amazing to go visit them, because having a host is even better than just meeting somebody from the local place, or going on a date with somebody, and even having them invite you to hang out again. When you can meet people and go and travel to where they live, um, it's amazing. So I was in Germany, and that's a culture I never knew much about before a few years ago, when I started traveling a bunch and meeting a bunch of Germans, because they're everywhere, as we know. Um,
It's true.
but I went to Berlin, which was low on my list, but had I made a friend, and she talked it up quite a bit, and then I went there, and it really lived up to the hype. And she was an amazing host. She brought me to things I never would have done had I just gone there and gone to a hostel. And that's just, I think, pretty much the best thing I can say about traveling is meeting people and making relationships. I know you've had similar experiences, whether it be um, your trips across Europe and Asia, or just to Minnesota. Um, it's just awesome.
Yeah. Like when that hostel we stayed in Hawaii, you actually visited the girl that we met in Germany. You stayed with her.
Yeah,
Is that what
yeah, and then the yes, yep, Jess, and then also the Aussie that we were with. was traveling in Europe, and she was there too. We all got together, and then on that trip, I also went to the Netherlands. I went to another spot in Germany where I met up with a friend that I had made in Tulum. And then I went to Amsterdam and Rotterdam and met up with like two friends that I had met in Tulum, one for his birthday, and then another friend that I had met in Hawaii. It's just it's unbelievable. When you can go, it's one thing to meet somebody and have a chill, fun couple days, but then when you go and you hang out with them again, it's really the same vibe. That's when you kind of know, um, you know, you the people that we meet because we're all of the same mindset when we're traveling are just um, it's just different. You don't. I go to a bar or I meet a friend of a friend in America, and it's just not the same vibe as like just going and saying hello to somebody in a hostel. I mean, sometimes I meet people in hostels that I don't ever care to see again, but oh, you know what? It happens. Um, Most of the time, though, uh, it ends up being an amazing experience, and I've been lucky enough to have a bunch of those recently, and looking forward to having more.
Yeah, I completely agree that travel just hits different on all different kinds of levels. Um,
Mm-hmm.
can you think of any particular connection or experience that has really changed your perspective or changed the way travel means to you?
Um, yeah, I can. I'm trying to think of something different from everybody I just mentioned. Um, let's see. I would say so. I'll go back to yeah. I would say going back to kind of what we talked about before we were recording when we were in Hawaii and meeting so many people who, whether they didn't like their job or, whatever the case. So they just quit and kind of started going abroad. When I was just in Colombia, I met someone who, same situation, was like through it and just went to South America for 3 months and they were going to be there for another 3 months. Um, those are amazing stories, and that I'm currently not working. I haven't worked for 2 months. It's something that I wouldn't have even dreamed of 2 years ago. To just quit my job, and not that I'm encouraging anybody to necessarily quit their job. You have to be in the right position to do it, and it's something that I thought about for many months before doing. Would I like to have a job, something that I really cared about doing right now? Sure. But taking a break has been amazing, and it's something that's so frowned upon in American culture. I think it's getting a little bit better with these two generations. The youngest two generations are doing a much better job at putting a highlight on mental health. It's something that Europe has for a long time understood, which is why you meet so many people that are on like gap years and whether it's their first or their third or fourth gap year. Um, it's just something that's historically been frowned upon in American culture. So it's hard for me to convince myself that it was the right thing to do. But here I am going into month 3 of unemployment and zero Fs, feeling good. So yeah, I would say a
Yes,
couple people that I've met. Yeah. Again, not influencing anybody to quit their job. You have to be.
right.
It's something to think about. It's something to consider before doing it. For a long time, you want to be in financial. You think of the worst case scenario, I guess. But a lot of the times, the worst case scenario isn't so bad. The worst case scenario is you have a good time probably spend a bit more than you need to, but you come back and then you get to work. Um, and that's kind of where I'm at. Uh, I'm really excited for about the people that I've met that kind of influenced me in this way, and I'm looking forward to the next time I get to quit my job and do an even longer trip, which is in the works right now. So yeah, I would say that's the experience that has. I mean, right now it's one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Well, that's really awesome to hear. I mean, everyone deserves a break. If you're truly not happy with where you are in life, I think
Yeah,
courageous response is to quit and it is to pause, take rest, to like rejuvenate, catch up on your mental health because at the end of the day, this life is going to end and you don't want to spend it slaving away, putting in all the hours
exactly.
for what results at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're blessed, or those of us who are single with no kids, or even if you're not single with no kids, but our level of responsibility is low. A lot of us have loans and stuff to pay back, but that stuff can always go on hold. It's never the end of the world. And I was talking about this with my uncle the other day. Kind of, we put together our own social parachute in Europe, especially Northern Europe. They have the ability to travel, even if you don't come from a lot of money. Um, they put so much into making sure that everybody is cared for and everybody has great health insurance, and if you fall on hard times, the government has your back, and that's not something we necessarily get the benefit of here in America. But and even if but we have a lot of us come from okay family situations or good family situations, and even if your family situation isn't good, um, you know, going out and making friends and making connections in life is kind of the social parachute that you set up for yourself, whether you're doing it or not. Um, a lot of people will care for you, and a lot of people, if you do fall on, let's say you make a bit of a risky decision, you do quit your job and you go traveling, and then, let's say you get hurt or whatever, you know, people have your back, and it's something that um, is to be considered as well. Um, when you're making the decisions to you know, not live the normal life of slaving away, like you were saying, and doing that kind of work for 35, 40 years straight, and then you get to retire and have fun. Like, who wants to do that? Nobody. I'm just with my uncle, like I was saying before we were recording. My uncle's here celebrating his birthday, and he used to travel quite a bit. He was in the military, but he did a lot of trips when he was younger. And then at a certain point, he just got like sick of it. He was just over it. Who wants to wait until they're 55 or 60 to start doing fun stuff and then realize that they have no longer have any interest in it? Um, do it now.
With the
Do it
physical
as soon
capability.
as you can. Yeah. And I'm actually a bit jealous of you because you're out and you're doing it from the beginning. Not that I have any regrets about how I live my life, but the majority of my travel internationally started at age like 29, 30. Um, and the younger, the better, because the older you get, the more chances, responsibility, or the more pressure you feel in life. Not that anybody should feel that pressure, but if you have other goals in life, whatever they may be, they build up as you get older. So, for anybody listening, or for anybody I talk to in life, I say, just go for it. It's not something to wait for and say, oh, someday I want to do this, or I'm planning this, or whatever. Just get out and do it when you can, because you never know what's coming in the future when the next pandemic hits or whatever is coming for us. Just get out there and do it.
Truly. Yeah, it's a bad mindset to have that we push off things to the next year, till 5 years down the line, until we're retired.
Yeah.
who's to say that we're granted that time? We don't know it for
Yeah.
and so I definitely agree with that mindset. Do it while you're young because, I mean, everyone talks about financial investing. Oh, you got to invest in your retirement savings account when you're young. The same
Yeah.
could be applied to experiences. I mean, I could argue that the capital you gain or that you invest in at this age right now will pay off in much higher dividends than any monetary, investment that you make because the experiences and the wisdom and all the lessons you learn through living life rather than doing something you not don't necessarily like to do. I think that
Yeah. You need to grow in a camp. Absolutely, 100%. Not to say that it's the right way to go for everybody. But if you feel it inside, there's a lot of people that think about the social construct that we have that this is the way things work. You go to college, I guess get married, have a kid, or either way, you go to college and then you work for 40 years and then you get to relax. Like that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like it's crazy to me that that holds people back. Um, and it's amazing every time I meet somebody, whether they're 19 or 29 or 39 or whatever age they're at, but they're breaking that mold. And that was what was so great about Hawaii. And, it's been so great every time I've met somebody, especially an American, um, because we just really had it effed up. We have it so backwards, so many ways, so many different things. Not to say that every country in Europe or wherever has it right, but they certainly get some things right versus us.
yeah, definitely. To go off your travel experiences while you were working, kind of living that nomadic lifestyle, can you talk
Yeah.
about what it was like working while traveling, living abroad? How did you manage, that work-life balance? And yeah, how did that affect the way you experience a place?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say the number one thing that I think about now because I'm looking for new jobs that I can still travel, and the thing that's on my mind the most every time I look through a job is quite literally, will I want to do it? When you wake up in a place and there's people most of the time that aren't working, you have to force yourself to kind of break away from those people and do your job. They're going to be doing fun stuff. They're going to be going to Mayan pyramids for the day, or the Rodana, or going to some castle uh, in
Germany.
Germany. Yeah, like there's going to be people doing fun stuff, and you gotta want to do your job, whether money is money, but there's something to be said about finding something that you actually care about. So I would say is the first thing. Beyond that, yeah, you have to know yourself. You have to understand, um, you know, what motivates you, and be able to kind of separate yourself from travel life. Vacation versus remote working or nomading, whatever you want to call it. You put a schedule together and you try and stay to that schedule as much as you can. So for me, I would I would set up 2 hour blocks, and I would try to achieve four per day, even though it was pretty tough to actually get 8 hours of work in when you're traveling, because you're dealing with different things. If you're in a hostel, there's always stuff going on. Um, if so a lot of what I would do is maybe wake up, try and do 2 hours of work before I even leave my room, or maybe at breakfast, just sit and work. And then people are going to show up. You're going to want to talk to them. They're going to be doing cool stuff or going to get ready or going to the beach, whatever, getting back to it, getting in another block of work. But for everybody, it's going to be different. And, I would figuring that out and having it be repeatable, I would say is, it's very difficult to have any type of, you know, schedule when you're traveling because you're going to be all different places and, you never know whether you're going to be if you're moving a hostel or if you have a 6 hour bus ride or something like that. But you can still kind of plan ahead and know when you're going to work, and you got to really stick to that. So discipline is huge. Like my first point, caring about what you do, and not just because that's your paycheck to be able to work. You got to really, want to sit and do it because there's so much other stuff, and you get yourself in trouble when your friends are going to be out partying until 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and you're not going to want to wake up and do whatever meeting and do whatever call you have to do. So you got to actually want to do it. That's just maybe that's just me. I'm sure there's people that are out there doing it that hate their jobs and they just do it for the love of traveling. But for me, I'm really looking for something in my next position that you know I really care about, and that'll make it fun. The travel's fun, but also, getting work done is fun. It's hard to find, but it's possible. Anything's possible.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you're gonna find it. The right job is looking for you somewhere out there.
Yeah, somewhere out there, they're saying they want me, but I haven't found it yet.
So, how long have you spent in a destination? What's the longest you've like traveled in one place for?
Like in like a country or just in one exact spot. Um,
I guess in one country.
Yeah, so actually, this last trip, like as Americans, it's tough for us because when I started working after college, you know, after that, what did they give you? 10 days off, and 5 days of personal time. So it's really difficult to travel long term. Like when we're out, we meet Europeans who
They get at least
we meet
crazy.
what?
They get at least a month off, and they're like, "Go."
Yeah, exactly. And then they can always extend that and stuff like that. So in America, we're doing a bit better now. You can take like mental health breaks. You're not supposed to be out traveling for that, but I've had friends that have done that. Um, but the longest I had gone was 2.5 weeks up until a couple years ago when I really got hardcore into to I gave up my apartment lease and everything and uh, I had spent about a month in Quintana Roo, 2 months in Quintana Roo, like just like doing the Tulum, Playa del Carmen, and uh,
You told me
wherever
about
else. Hold on,
this, right?
what's up?
You told me about Isla Mujeres. That was one of your.
Yeah, so Isla Holbox or Holbox, whatever, is like this gorgeous island up there, but it's almost impossible to remote work from there. So I never went up there when I was traveling because there's really not internet. And even when they have, so that's another thing about remote working that you need to consider. Where can you act? Because I went to like Valladolid, is like a small city. Um, didn't think twice about it. I figured, okay, there's no partying there. They have some bars, but it's a nice, quiet, beautiful city. About 2 hours from everything else. And I got there and I searched around. I stayed in like three different hotels, 3 different days, trying to find one that had legit internet, and then just figured out it was the city. They legit just didn't have internet good enough to support logging in and doing what I needed to do. So I had to go back. I had to move to a different place. So it is what it is. But yeah, so I've spent a couple months doing that, and then traveling without a job. I just spent 6 weeks in Colombia, or I guess it was like 5.5 weeks, and then I spent a week in Mexico City. So that's my longest trip. I had to quit my job to do that. Could I have done it with the job? Yes. The internet wasn't great in most of the places I was at in Colombia. Um, some of the hostels there was no internet, so it wouldn't have really been very possible to do it with a job, but it would have been it would have been possible. So 6 weeks, I'd say, is the longest.
Mm, okay. Well, 6 weeks I definitely would define as more slow travel. So like
Yeah, yeah.
really
You take your time,
to know a
and
place.
then you take your time. You get to know. Well, you what I'll say is you get to do a lot. You get to listen to people and their experiences that you meet, and you get to choose. You get to hang out with them, and that's the best part about traveling. For me, solo travel, hostel travel. The best part is for me is meeting people, connecting with them, and then traveling with them. You know, when I solo travel, I'm almost never actually solo. Um, it's it's amazing, and it it's what I think about on a day to day basis when I'm not traveling. Um, so yeah, I'm excited for whatever comes next. Um, and yeah, I think my next plan is actually probably going to be full on remotely living somewhere. Spain is doing it, Portugal, a couple other European countries, Colombia does it. Mexico is always an option for remote work and living abroad. So that's, I've done everything else. I think that's kind of the next step for me. Um,
Super exciting.
yes, yeah. If I can make it happen, and I don't see any way that I won't make it happen, um, I'm just done with America. Excuse me, it was a long night.
That's okay. Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, when you spend so long in somewhere, you definitely have an itch to experience something new and get a change of scenery. I think that's just
Yeah,
human nature to want new experiences. Um, but when you do spend so long in a place, I mean, 6 weeks is kind of a lengthy time.
yeah,
Some people may argue differently. I mean, some people are on the road, for years.
yes.
But I mean, how do you or experience or handle travel burnout, if at all, spending so much time away from home?
Um, that's a great question. I have been traveling or living on the road now without a lease for over for 2 years, and then before that, I was doing quite a bit of travel, but at least I had a home base. So, if you can go somewhere and you're staying there long enough to set up a home base, sure, that's great. Over the last 2 years, I haven't had it, and yeah, you get burned out a bunch. Um, I guess what I would say is kind of mental fortitude. When you're traveling, negative things happen. Whether it's something disappearing, whether you lose it or it gets stolen. Um, sometimes you just miss your own bed. Sometimes you're just exhausted from having so much fun. Sometimes you're exhausted from work. Um, it happens. You just kind of have to know yourself and know well learn yourself really because if you're new to it, you've never experienced it before. You've got to remember that stuff. You've got to remember what works or what doesn't work to kind of bring you back down to whether it's taking a couple days off, whether it's getting a cheap hotel for a couple nights and getting away from um, the craziness of having seven other people in your bedroom. Um, you got to know yourself, and whether it's moving to a different city, going to a national park, or just partying and getting laid, whatever gets you back to kind of like, okay, this is the goal, this is why I'm doing this, and sometimes you gotta kind of take a break, or go home or whatever. I've never been in that situation, but sometimes it's done, and it's time to plan the next trip or whatever. So um, it's kind of touch and go, but the most important thing is kind of learning yourself and remembering what works and remembering what doesn't. Uh, I would I would probably I could come up with a few different times that you know I thought, okay, if I do this I'll feel better, and it kind of makes you feel worse. Um, it's all about just that internal focus. I like to meditate. I try to meditate. Sometimes it's hard because, like I said before, you're in a bedroom with seven other people, but it's definitely possible. Working out helps me. Like get the blood flowing, get the brain working, and alone time. Taking a few hours, a couple days, whatever it is. For everybody's different. For me, it's not a lot of time. Um, but for people who are more introverted, it's going to take a lot more time to get yourself reset and kind of start over. Um, for everybody it's different, but um, taking that time and kind of focusing on yourself is probably the best way to kind of get through that burnout.
Yeah, I think those are really helpful hints because travel, as glamorous and exciting as it looks online, it really is exhausting at times.
It is. It's painful at times. I've made friends traveling that go through some really tough experiences. I've been blessed to kind of have a real cool head on my shoulders. So nothing really gets me too up or down. But I've met people that certainly get up and they certainly get down. Um, and it's really difficult um, to kind of manage your own brain when everything around you is constantly changing. The people around you are changing.
There's a lot
You're
of
changing.
fun.
What's up?
There's a lot of stimulation when you travel. That's it's one of the
Oh,
reasons
it's
why it can be draining.
insane. It's insane. And like, there's a lot of emotions when you travel, whether it's friends, uh, romances. You can love a place. You can love a hostel. There's a lot, and there's a lot of um, dopamine, and like and then there's a lack of dopamine sometimes. So you're gonna feel up and you're gonna feel down, and being able to mentally stay with it is hugely important. And this is all stuff that you kind of learn about yourself and kind of what brings you back to normal, whether you're up or down or whatever it is ultimately so important. And it's, a lot of the reason why this lifestyle isn't for everyone. I was in Las Vegas last year, and I had my work vehicle with me because I just was living on the road, in hotels or staying with friends, staying Airbnbs, whatever, just around the west coast of the U.S. And my car got broken into, and like $1,000 worth of stuff got taken. All my suits, my PlayStation, my computer. Luckily, not my work computer, but it sucked. But it's all just things. I'm fine. I've met people, especially down in Colombia, that had passports taken, phones taken. But you just kind of thank whoever if you're religious or whatever you are, that you're safe. And because it can get worse, you have to remind yourself that type of stuff. Um, we could always be, well, not always, but for the most part, it could always be worse. Um, and just kind of trying to stay even keel, and reminding yourself why you do what you do, why you live the way that you do. The ups are always better than the downs. The downs you barely ever remember. I remember because I often wish I had my computer and I wish I had a PlayStation to play or my suits. But it never stopped me. I don't even care. Um, the ups are always better than the downs. Not always, but 99% of the time, the ups are better than the downs, and um, you got to remind yourself that.
Yeah, that's an amazing mindset to have. I really respect that, and I personally try to embody that as well. I'm sorry you got your stuff stolen. That freaking sucks.
That's fine. It's fine. It's always something that I knew was a possibility. I shouldn't have had all the stuff in the car because I barely used any of it. At this point, I just travel around with a backpack, and whatever I need for work. Um, because having that type of stuff with you is nice, but it's a risk. Unfortunately, there's shitty people out there. You hope that you don't run into anything like that, but it's always a possibility. So, even in hostels, you know, most of the time you're not going to run into anything. You can leave your stuff all sitting on your bed, scattered around for weeks, and
Yeah,
nothing bad will happen to it. But it's always a possibility. So if it's anything that you really care about that will F your day up if it disappears, lock it up, be safe with it. Money, and your passport, you got to know. Just uh, don't carry it around unless you absolutely have to, because as unfortunate as it is, there's effed up people out there. Most of the time, they're not in the hostel with you, but when my second weekend in Colombia in Santa Marta, this girl just had her phone on the table of the restaurant or the hostel, and it's not the same in Europe or in the U.S. or a lot of places. You have to be staying in the hostel to be able to get in, even to the restaurant or the bar or whatever. You have to be in the hostel to get to it. But in Latin America and South America, they don't do that. Anybody can walk in. So, a girl had her phone on the table. Somebody walked in and walked out with her phone. It's unfortunate. A girl got in a cab late night. They say don't take the cabs. Um, but, they took her wallet. They took her passport, which she should have never had with her. So it's all stuff that you got to take seriously, even if it even if life is good, everything's been great. You've gone weeks and weeks or months, and everything's been good. But everything's good because you take these precautions, and that's important too.
yeah, I think that's also really helpful advice, especially to me personally, because I tend to be on the more naive side when traveling. Um,
Yeah,
I've definitely
it,
lost my fair share of things.
yeah, and it's what things don't matter. Is the mindset that I have when something disappears, when money disappears. Money comes and goes. Um, but there's simple things that you can do, like those couple things that uh, you know that help you not have to go through these not have to go through these situations too often.
Yeah. Definitely like look into risk mitigation as much as possible, especially like destination specific, like, you know,
Yeah.
common theft scams or just, stuff like that to research.
Transportation is a big one, and then for those who partake in some of the more illegal activities or locations or like nightclubs, you got to be safe. You got to prepare. Know which which modes of transportation are okay and when. Always try and travel in groups, especially if you're a young woman. Um, and sometimes I'm guilty walking alone in
Mm.
certain areas, certain locations, and then watching your drinks at bars or even in the hostel. There's messed up people out there, like I said before. Hopefully, they're not in the hostels with you, but they can be. Everybody can get in. So, taking the precautions is necessary for keeping yourself safe and keeping yourself happy. The longer that you travel, the more important it becomes because it's so easy to just feel safe, to feel comfortable. But then something like that happens and, you know, ruins your day, ruins your week, ruins your trip, whatever.
Yeah, that reminds me. I should do like a another episode on like solo female safety hacks or something like that because I definitely
Yeah.
had lessons. I mean, as far as losing stuff and like theft, I remember in Amsterdam, I rented a bike and I lost it. I don't know if anyone
Oh,
stole
no.
it, but it cost me like 200 euros, which was definitely
Yeah.
like a huge portion of my budget. And,
Yeah.
you know, obviously my natural reaction was like not even I wasn't even super mad at myself because I'm so used to losing things. It's really bad. But
Yeah.
yeah, just realizing ultimately putting things into perspective, that was probably the worst thing that happened throughout my whole 5.5 weeks in Europe. And so that was something I'm grateful for at the end of the day. I'm not mad that I spent $200 when I didn't have to. I'm just grateful that I didn't have any major safety concerns that whole trip. So
No, no, for sure.
that was the worst
That's a
thing.
good mindset. That's a great mindset to have. It could always be worse. And then kind of um, you when you're retrospectively thinking of it, um, I would think two things. I would think one, don't let it happen again. You know what? The first time something happens, okay, you've learned from this experience, and you're gonna change based on what happened. And then two, you kind of look back and think about why it happened. Sometimes there's nothing you can do. Somebody breaks into your locker. There's no. There's legitimately nothing you can do. There's no room for a locker. Could you have stayed somewhere else? Whatever. But sometimes things happen and you have no control. But you think about if you could have controlled the situation better, and you make changes and you live with those changes. You keep that as something that you do on a day-to-day basis, and that's how you get better, and that's how you protect yourself. Because things like that suck, and the 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 people who are going to be successful at or long term be able to long term be able to live this life are the people who are going to be able to roll with those punches, who are going to be able to have the mindset like you had when the bike got stolen, and say, you know what, at least at least that's the worst thing that happened. It could have been worse. Or my friend who got in a cab at whatever 5 a.m. in Medellin, uh, and they robbed her. The first thing she said to me was, "I'm just glad that that's all that happened." It was a bad mistake. She's learned from it. She won't do it again. But well, hopefully she won't do it again. If it happens again, it's kind of her fault. But it's never her fault. Um, you try to do what you can. You try to make decisions that keep you safe and keep yourself safe. Everybody's going to make mistakes, but the biggest thing to remember is that when you're traveling, when you're alive, this type of negative things are going to happen. And what's most important is what you do next, and how you think about it. So it's unfortunately a part of travel that gets glossed over quite a bit. But how you deal with the negative is so important. How you deal with the down is so important. And like you said, I think a great episode for you to do, especially for new young women traveling. Um, it's a great episode, and uh, um, I probably know some people that would be good for that, and you probably know some people that would be good. Um, it's hugely important. I think about it all the time. How some of the people I meet, I met an Israeli girl on my last trip who did 2 years on the road in Latin and South America, and it's just wild to me because it's impossible to have every decision you make keep you in the safest, keep you, that safe. You're going to be alone. You're going to be in sketchy situations. Um, so how do you deal with that? How do you, what are the kind of, most important things that you remember in every decision you make? I'd be interested to listen to that. So let me know when you do that one. I'm going to listen.
Amazing. And yeah, I'd love to know any context who'd be interested in speaking on that topic. So if you have any recommendations. But yeah, I'd say some final questions or a final thought I'd like to know your insight on is over all your travel experiences, what would you say is the most impactful lesson that travel has taught you that has really shaped your mindset or perspective that you would not have had if it weren't for that?
Yeah. For me, it goes back to, um, like pretty simple or quite simply, like doing what you love. Travel is amazing because it it helps you understand more about you. When you take yourself out of your normal life and your day to day kind of rat race, whatever it is, whether it's college, whether it's a job, family, friends, it takes you out of your comfort zone, and that's where you really um, very quickly learn a lot about yourself. Um, for me, what I've learned is I love to meet new people. I'm very very good outside of my comfort zone. I actually um, don't even like a comfort zone anymore. I don't think I have any need for a comfort zone anymore. But all of that it just goes back to doing what like figuring out what you love and then just doing it. Um, as I've been traveling, I've met so many people who uh, it just seems like they have everything figured out, and it's actually pretty simple. They just do what every decision they make is based on the, planning that next trip and taking that next trip. But it doesn't have to be just travel based. You can travel for 3 weeks or 2 weeks or 1 week and then take that home and kind of figure out and you figured out, oh, I want to dance more. I want to when you take yourself outside of your comfort zone, it's the stuff that you think about, the stuff that you focus on while you're outside of your comfort zone, that when you're back in it, that's the stuff that you got to stick with, the stuff that you got to do. um, it's easy for us because it's travel. um, when I'm traveling, I'm still planning another trip ahead. But for some people, it's dance. For some people, it's work. For some, they want to find a new job or they want to do this at work or that. Or, for some people, it's relationship based or whatever. Um, but yeah, the biggest thing for me has just been, you know, like do what you love. Life is short. Um, any cliche that you could throw out there. But they exist for a reason. Those cliches because they're for the most part they're true. Um, there's no the construct of normal life. Going to college, working for 20 years, getting married, doing all, none of that stuff really matters. Um, do what you love. That's uh, that's my thought.
Yeah, I love that advice. Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you so much for being here and sharing all your insight. I really, really enjoyed talking with you. What's
Yeah.
your next trip? Where are you going next?
Um, yeah, it all, I have lists and lists of stuff. I'm a weirdo. I make lists of different places. I put timelines together. I'm kind of nuts in that way. I'm searching for this new job right now. Um, and if I could, I'd be back down in Colombia next month, doing, the other stuff that I didn't have time and energy and money to do last time. But I'm not sure that trip's gonna happen. So yeah, Colombia, Ecuador. I loved it so much that I'd go right back down there.
I want
And
to go
then
to
after
Ecuador
that,
this summer.
what's up?
I want to go to Ecuador this summer.
Yes, it's good. It's cheap. It's everybody I ran in, everybody I met down in Colombia who had done that or was doing that. I can see their Instagram right now, and I'm like, okay, yeah. So that was a good decision. Um, yeah, so for sure, that's on the list. Um, and then another summer Europe trip. I just love it during the summer. I'm sure I love it all the times, but and I have loved it when I've gone there. Not in the summer, but I have a trip planned to go to Belgium, Netherlands, Northern Germany again. Apparently, I was a fan,
Hmm.
and Denmark. Um, so we'll see when I can make that happen. If I can make that happen, yada yada. I'm usually pretty good at getting stuff done. If I, if that stays in first place for a while, and then some of the other stuff I have planned: Spain, the southern coast of Spain, like Barcelona, Valencia,
Oh my gosh,
into
that's
France.
the one on my bucket list. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, but I actually tabled that one because of this whole remote work visa thing that they're doing. Because that is my main goal right now is finding a job and applying for that somewhere else. And so that's my main goal. Wherever I get to go this year is great. There's some national parks here in the States that I want to do, especially out here on the West Coast. Southern Utah, like near Las Vegas, northern Arizona, up in Oregon, Montana. So that type of stuff. Mexico, Puerto Escondido has been on my list for a long time. So, that's a possibility for this year. Different closer trips. Um, but my main goal is by the end of this year to be not living full time in America, not even part time in America. Um, I'm taking a break from the Stars and Stripes, um, wherever it may be. And Spain is kind of the main goal, or Portugal, and then I can knock all that stuff out that's on my list for Europe. Morocco, Switzerland's been huge for me lately. It keeps climbing up the list. Um, and I've wanted to do a kind of Central Europe trip, Prague down to. Were you in Prague on your last trip?
No.
No, you were in Switzerland.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing that, and I was like, jealous. I want to go. And
Beautiful, you have to.
Austria, yeah, Austria, and I met actually down in Colombia. I met some really awesome Swiss people, girls and some guys from Switzerland that were just amazing. Um, and for me, that's what I love. Like I said earlier, going out, meeting people, and then going and living, experiencing how they live, continuing that relationship, that friendship, because it's real. You may not realize it when you're, just with somebody for a couple days, but that hits harder than 2 years of California,
Yeah.
knowing somebody. I have friends that I met for a 3 day weekend or whatever over New Year's, and I know more about them than some of my best friends in San Diego. Um, so yeah, everywhere is on my list for this year. We'll see. How about you? What do you got going on?
Oh my gosh. So, besides the fact that I want to go everywhere,
Yeah.
really prioritizing, interestingly enough, I was leaning towards South America, but now
Hmm.
Africa is really drawing me in. Like you said,
Yeah.
Morocco. I also want to go to like South Africa, and
Yeah.
maybe do some volunteer work there. I
Yeah.
want to maybe get yoga teacher certified, so I'd like to do that in Costa Rica, possibly. Um,
Yeah.
Mexico is definitely, I'm definitely gonna make that happen. I
Yeah.
can't believe I haven't gone yet. It's like so close to America, but haven't gotten a chance to yet.
Sometimes it's hard the places that are close because you think you have the mindset that I can do that anytime if you have the shot. You're going to choose Morocco or Mexico. If you can get to Morocco, you're going to do Morocco. But you always keep it in mind. Sometimes you can't go that far or for that long, or financially the flight, whatever. And then Mexico will happen. This past trip, Colombia wasn't my first choice. Australia was my first choice. But when I left my job, I did not get paid out quite as much as I was expecting, and the cost difference. You know, I don't know how much people or how much you know about Colombia, but it's quite cheap.
Yeah.
Um, the cost difference was probably 1/5 of Australia, and actually the most expensive thing about the whole trip was the flights. Um, so yeah, I think I live with lists. Everything is always on a list for me. Um, and I kind of like,
I
what's
have
up?
same. I have almost 600 notes in my phone of lists.
Yeah, yeah, that's good.
The same
It's
time.
great. The phone is. Some people just try to remember stuff, and I'm like, how do you do this? I have stuff ranked. A few years back, actually pre 2020 even, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put this down. So, it's good to know because every decision you make really, if you love something, every decision you make should be, you're internally asking yourself that question, whether you know it or not. Is this decision, is this money that I'm spending, is this work that I'm doing, is this job that I have, is this friendship, is this whatever, helping me get towards that goal? And for those of us that have the travel bug or the wanderlust, whatever you want to call it, or a cool Instagram hashtag, there is, uh, that is our love. That is the one thing that we care about more than most. And every decision we make is based on that. So, having a list and being able to look at it, like, you know, if I do this, if I take this day off, is that hurting my chances of making this trip happen? That type of stuff. Um, so yeah, I love it. Those all sound great. I think Morocco, South Africa are in my top 10. Um, and then Ecuador is not in the top 10, but it's easy and it's fresh in my mind right now that I could just get right back down there. So I'm excited to continue to watch you remotely, and uh, yeah, let me know if you're anywhere on the West Coast or the East Coast. Maybe we can link up.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you. And I'm sure that the right place will find you, like, because like you said, going back to your advice, if you do what you love, then the path will open up to you and it will all work out.
Yes.
It's all in
Yeah.
alignment if you're in alignment.
For the most part, we're super blessed to be from a place where we have these opportunities, where we have such a powerful passport, um, and where we develop our own or come from, a nice social parachute that you know if all hell breaks loose in our lives, or certain things don't go the way we planned, that we're going to be okay. So you know, get out there and live life. It's a blessing that we have that we should take advantage of.
And with that, Adam Merrick, everyone. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That was amazing
Um,
conclusion.
Thank you so much for thinking of me, and it's good to have these conversations because it brings me back to what's important, and it's obvious stuff that we know, but it's always great to talk through it and keep it fresh on the mind. So awesome.
Thank you, Adam, for your time and insight. And thank you guys for watching, or not watching, for listening. I have a lot more travel episodes with many more special guests coming. So please subscribe if you like the show, leave a rating, and please drop any suggestions in the show notes. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And yeah, thanks for just being along with me on this journey.